So we know that there'll be a very new team in place at the White House very soon. A member of the outgoing team is Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary for President Biden. She posted this on social media. Charlie's beside himself already. Here's to the best team in the business. I couldn't do it without you. You sort of wonder how she would be without them.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
This is like,
couldn't.
And look, in fairness, when you're doing a tough job, and she has one, and you have that camaraderie, you want to pay tribute to the people that you work with. But this sort of has the same vibe to me as like someone on the Chicago White Sox from this past season, putting out a team photo and being like, what an amazing group to be a part of. They lost 121 games in Chicago this past season. That's the baseball equivalent of this press shop. I understand that President Biden didn't give them much to work with, right? It's very hard to speak on his behalf and to defend him. But with all respect, she is uniquely bad at this job.
And she has the entire press corps almost exclusively behind her. They're doing her work for her, and she still is a complete disaster.
That's why I thought Molly Hemingway, the great Molly Hemingway, had one of the best tweets out there on this. She said, there is not an easier job in the universe than being press secretary for a Democrat. And yet somehow y'all still failed. So let's get a little bit of a look back at some of the highlights.
Do we have to?
What some people call Binder, Karine Jean-Pierre.
Title 42 is going to be lifted. Yes, it will. But we are going to move to Title 8. The border is not open.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead. Instead of Republicans, focusing on the president's performance in office and what he's been able to accomplish, his actual record, they do these cheap fakes.
Is there a real alarm happening behind the scenes that the president is simply too old to stake around for another 4 years?
No, there's no alarm happening behind the scenes. I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone.
Well,
she did say at one point as well that she and some of the staffers just could scarcely keep up with Joe Biden and his pace and his energy. And it's just like, I think laughing, unfortunately, is the right response, right? It's a joke. It was gaslighting at the time, cheap fakes. One of the creepiest things that's happened in our politics in the last year was Karine Jean-Pierre spewing out that word, cheap fakes, which no one had ever heard before. And then most of the mainstream media picking it up overnight, like through osmosis. Within hours, they're like, oh, this is a thing that we say now. And of course, it wasn't cheap. It wasn't fake. It was real. And the lie that she told to our colleague, Mark Meredith, about the pardon, for example, it's just like one greatest hit after another from this crew, starring, in many cases, her, because the principal, rarely spoke.
And sadly, it proves you can tell any lie. And it doesn't matter how big it is. If you just tell it and keep telling it and keep telling it, there's a portion of the people that believe it, and they fall in line. And then we wind up, months, years later, it turns out all the speculation about his mental incapacity.
all it took was an op-ed from George Clooney, and then they all switched over. It's crazy.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.